Hi, welcome to David Pattinson's Accused Friends. My name's David Pattinson, and today I'm here with Jonny Fox, frontman of the band The King Blues, who faced many online accusations of assault and inappropriate behaviour. He's here with us today to address these accusations and what he's been doing about them. Jonny, how you getting on?
I'm very well, thanks for having me, Dave.
My pleasure. Now, you and I have both been falsely accused, but is it fair to say we're both friends?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting, the friends that I've made in this community and the people that I've met through being falsely accused. It's people from very diverse backgrounds who I wouldn't necessarily cross paths with. However, we all have that in common, where I think there's been an awakening of, well, a feeling that we need to unite.
I think you're right. Well, can you tell us a little bit about your story? What's led you to come in here today and this all these accusations that have arisen around your life?
I mean, it's a messy story, but what happened to me was I came out of a long-term relationship. I filmed a music video. That day, I was pretty drunk by the end of it. I was having a good time. I came home and I called up this girl I've been chatting to. She came over to my house and basically moved in the very next day, and it should have set off a couple of alarm bells with me. I should have gone, okay, she's not quite right here, but at the same time it served me, it served her, it was all fine. A month or so in, she started hitting me. I would wake up in the morning to her screaming. She would bite herself, she would hit her head against the wall. I thought, okay, this is pretty crazy. But at the time, I was kind of living the life. I thought, as long as someone lets me get as drunk as I want to get, lets me do what I want to do, because she was perfectly happy doing that too, then, hey, I'm cool, I'm in a good place. I sort of let it happen. Okay. I was living a pretty wild life, I suppose, at the time. Then one day, she wakes up screaming about how she's taken a pregnancy test, and she doesn't let me see it, of course. She starts hitting me, she starts biting me. I mean, what can I do? You know, I'm not going to hit her back, I'm not going to do anything, so I just take it. Okay. We go to the hospital. She goes in to see a nurse. The nurse then comes out and says, look, can I speak to you in private? Meanwhile, she's going, no, we've got to go right now. So I said, all right, hang on, I'm going to go and speak to the nurse. The nurse says to me, she's not pregnant, she never was pregnant. What's the deal? And I said to her, well, look, to be honest, she's got severe mental health issues. I don't know what's going on. I don't want her coming back with me. I'm kind of done. This is where I draw the line. So I went outside, and the nurse came with me. And I told this girl, I said, look, I don't want you coming back to mine. I don't want to be with you anymore. I'm done. She starts trying to grab me. The nurse has to physically take her off me. So I go back home. Next thing I know, this is about 5 hours later, get the police knocking at my door. Can I come in? It's like, all right, sure, whatever. What's this about? I'm thinking...
You think it was related to the incident in the hospital?
I'm thinking my flat smells of weed, right, you know, right. And they can smell, someone's reported, someone's having a spliff in there or something. Right. So they come in, I'm thinking, oh, well, look, I've got a little bit of weed over there. I point it out to them. They're like, no, we're arresting you for assault. What? We're arresting you for assault on this girl.
The girl from the hospital.
The girl from the hospital. I'm thinking, what on earth has she told them? This is madness. I completely couldn't believe it. So they took me down to the station, put me in a cell. Overnight, I was really, you know, obviously I wasn't sleeping or anything like that. I wasn't thinking right. So they waited until the morning, purposely waited until, you know, the very last minute where they could take me out and question me. Okay. And did you have a lawyer present for the questioning? I had just the in-house person that they called, who didn't care at all about my case. I later learned it was a ridiculous decision for me to make to just get the in-house guy. But this is what I was recommended. I demanded, what I did do to my favour was I demanded that I see a doctor to document the marks on my body. So they interviewed me, and it was clear they thought I was guilty. They'd made up all this rubbish. They'd said that even in her statement, she claimed that it started because she went mad at me. I said to them, okay, so she's admitted that she's assaulted me then? They said, no, she just said she went mad at you. I said, well, did you not press her on what that meant?
Right.
No, we didn't press her on what that meant. It was clearly obvious to me at that point, the police were not there to find out the truth. They were there to build a case against me. They were there to get a conviction, to add another tick to their list. So that's when I demanded on tape to see the doctor.
Okay.
The doctor came and he said, this guy's covered in marks. He's got scratches all over his body. There were, and not just scratches, they're scabbed up, they were deep, like flesh rips. I had bite marks all over my body. And the police said, well, she's got bite marks on her. How can you explain that? How can you explain the bite marks that she's got on her? I said, look, she bites herself. Of course, they laughed it off.
Really?
Well, of course they did. It sounds ridiculous. If someone said that to me at that time, I probably would have said, well, yeah, of course she didn't. Of course she didn't bite us. Who bites himself?
Did the police think that this girl needed a sort of a psychiatric evaluation?
No.
Did those kind of comments ever come up?
Never came up.
After the interview, were you charged subsequently?
No. So they, after seeing my injuries, said, okay, well, clearly something's gone on here, and do you want to press charges for assault? Because what she's telling us after hearing your side isn't quite adding up. It was clear that their case that they'd made overnight was falling apart, didn't make any sense. And the fact that I was covered in scratches and bite marks myself and bruises, it was quite clear that this wasn't happening. So they said, look, do you want to make charges yourself? And at the time, I foolishly just said, no, I just want to leave it. I just want these charges dropped against me. I want to move on with my life. And that's all I'd wanted anyway, was just to end this relationship and get on with it.
And so what happened, Jonny, with these allegations? You were not charged by the police, is that correct?
No, I wasn't charged.
But in the public domain, word got out that you were, you were in this abusive relationship and you were the perpetrator, is that correct?
Well, she decided to write a blog then, because the police weren't pressing any charges. She wrote a blog saying how much of a victim she was, saying that I had taken her and kicked her in her stomach and therefore killed this baby, though she was never pregnant. Right. Everything she was saying didn't add up in any way whatsoever, and she painted herself out to be some sort of angel. It was so bizarre, yet, and so filled with lies, yet people decided to believe these lies, and these were lies that people chose to believe. All of a sudden it got taken up by very extremist feminist groups who saw it as their own cause to fight against me, at which point it spiraled out of control. People started emailing my record label, my management, my promoters, my agent, everyone I work with. And it just got completely out of control.
And how did these people started treating you? Were they, were you losing record deals? Were you losing concerts? Were you losing fans? Were you losing income?
Yeah, I got an incredible amount of threats written to me. I had people protesting at my shows. My press agent came back to me and said, look, you're blacklisted from the entire music press. Now, this isn't a case of the music press weren't interested in me before. I've been on the front cover of Kerrang, The NME, Rock Sound many times. And they refused to even review an album or, do a tiny article on me. Everyone was completely washing their hands of me. No one wanted anything to do with me. In fact, they wanted to be seen as dropping me. The radio person came back and said the exact same thing. This is after having many records playlisted on Radio 1, so they have to play it on the hour, every hour. Now, no radio stations will touch me. Concerts got dropped left, right and centre. I had no way of earning any money or of carrying on my life, really.
And how did all this make you feel, Jonny?
At first, I was just I was in shock by it. And it was traumatic. And, I suspect I have PTSD, and my doctor also suspects it. I'm being tested for it in January. I had to start taking antidepressants. I had to start getting counselling. It made me really suicidal at the start. now I'm starting to pick myself back up again, but it's never going to leave me.
So how long was this process of, this girl made the accusations against you to the police, and then it seems like very soon after publicly, and then there was this backlash against you. What was the time period that went on for?
I mean, the backlash itself.
The backlash time period.
I mean, it's still going on. It's still happening today. Until I can clear my name, even if I do, there's still no guarantee that anything's going to revert back to what it was. There's always going to be a doubt in people's minds. So this carries on to this day, absolutely.
And you mentioned there was other accusations that kind of came in simultaneously on the back of this. Is that correct?
Well, she'd organised with other people to make a few false accusations against me. But I mean, I've sort of dealt with those, and they're, I dealt with those the proper way. The police looked into them and said there's nothing here and dropped it. And it was kind of obvious that she'd organised this.
And were you aware of this issue of false accusations, before this happened to you?
Absolutely not. I would have been the first to hang people out to dry. I would have been the first to throw people in front of the bus and say, why would anyone make a false accusation?
No smoke without fire.
Why would anyone put someone through this? Why would people, I would be the first one. I would never have believed a false accusation would be made, or it would be 1 in a billion chance of it happening. And if it did happen, it would easily be found out. This has changed my entire way of viewing everything, really. It's completely... it's turned my entire processing around, really, and it's affected my life deeply to the point where I'm not a kind of a middle-class trust fund kid who's had it easy and just had this happen to them. I've been through struggles my entire life and overcome them. Nothing has been like this, though. Nothing has affected me like this has, and this has changed me forever.
Now, you mentioned that you've taken an aggressive legal approach against this, haven't you? And can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, eventually I decided to sue her for defamation.
Okay. This is the girl that made the original accusation.
Yeah, and I am so glad that I finally decided to do that, because this is me fighting back now, and it's taken literally years. She's stalled every moment of the way. She's made these ridiculous claims that just as it was going to court, that she suddenly can't appear at court because she's mentally incapacitated. And the interesting thing about that was that the judge said, well, we can't just take your word for that, you need to provide something from your doctor. So she has a long-term psychologist. The psychologist wrote in and said she has these severe mental health issues. In fact, she bites herself, hits her own head against the wall, has been doing so since she was 18. So this is a long time that she's been doing this.
And this backs up your statement
and
that you made to
all of
police.
a sudden, I've now got this report that says from her side that she's sent in from her doctor saying she bites herself, she hits her head against the wall, she abuses herself, she's clearly has severe mental health issues. And this is something that no one would believe me of before. And now I have, written in paper. So I'm really grateful that the judge insisted that he have some sort of proof for that.
And so have there been any other allegations from this girl against you, apart from the ones she's made in the public domain and the ones you made to the police in the first instance? Has there been any further accusations she's made since you launched the defamation case? No,
since I've launched the defamation case, she's taken herself offline. She's a model. Yeah. She's stopped working. I think it's made her realise, oh, hang on, I can't just go around making up things about people and expecting it to have no consequences whatsoever. So, I'm at a point where I haven't brought any legal action against her, though I am within my right.
No criminal legal action against her, just the civil action, the defamation case.
But I am within my right to bring criminal action, not only for that, because she also, when she wrote her blog, she also published intimate photos of me that she'd taken while I was sleeping. I wasn't even aware that she had. And so this revenge porn, it goes both ways. I'm not the type of person to put that stuff out there. I'm quite private about that kind of stuff, whereas she published these photos of me. So I could quite easily have her for criminal on a criminal charge as well. But at the moment, I'm concentrating on this civil case, and it's so far it's been very successful.
So let's talk about this issue then of false accusations, Jonny. I mean, a lot of people watching this interview are going to want to, they're going to like what you're saying about, I'm Jonny, I'm pushing back, I'm taking legal action. What would you have done differently, going right back to the time when you first met this girl to say, look, how could I have protected myself better, or could I have seen this coming?
I wish I had filmed her when she was hitting herself, not because for any kicks or anything like that. I didn't know what to do at the time when she did it, and it worried me. I called up her mother and I said, look, she's hitting herself. Mother said she's totally aware of this behaviour. She's been doing this for a long time. The doctor said, on the doctor's advice, her doctor's advice, just to leave her and let her do it. So I wish I'd had some footage of that. I wish I had footage of her. I wish I'd documented every time she hit me and every time she left a mark on my body. I wish I'd documented all of that.
Okay.
I wish alarm bells had started ringing from the word go, and I'd have just left. And I wish that as soon as her blog came out, that I fought it. I wish I'd have gone straight to the public with my own blog and said, no, this is rubbish. I didn't know what to do at the time. I curled up into a ball and had no idea how to react to it. Looking back, I wish I'd have been completely different, really, and fought it from day one.
So your advice to people watching this that go through the similar thing is to fight it from day one?
Aggressively fight it from day one. If you've been falsely accused and you need to clear your name, put everything you can into it. It's the only thing that matters at that time. Everything else has to go on hold, and you need to live, breathe, eat, sleep, clearing your name. That has to be number one. Do not throw away any text messages. Do not delete any emails. Have a record of absolutely everything. Have a timeline of absolutely everything that's happened, because the wonderful thing is you have truth on your side. Now, the thing with having truth on your side is you can prove it. And even if it seems far out and people are saying things about you and it seems like everybody is on their side, they will be at the start, because that's our instinct, is to protect. Our instinct as human beings is to protect other people. Somebody says they're being abused, of course our heart's going to go out to them. However, that's not always the truth. The truth is that this is how a lot of women abuse people, not just physically. False accusations are abuse in themselves. False accusations of abuse are a form of abuse. And this is what toxic femininity is. So if a woman or anyone says you've done something you haven't, you need to fight with everything you've got in order to clear your name. A lie unchallenged becomes a truth very quickly.
So people will maybe watching this saying, Jonny, he's a high-profile guy, he's got lots of money, he's got the means to fight these charges. What about if you're just a regular guy? Maybe you're a teacher in a school, or maybe you're an employee in an office, an engineer or an operator or something like that. How do you deal with fighting back against these claims if you're, Joe Public?
It's very difficult, and it can feel like a very lonely place to be in. I think finding other people who have been falsely accused is key and is vital for support, for knowing that you're not alone. But I think, you need to go out. If you're being judged in the court of public opinion, the kangaroo court of public opinion, then you need to go out and fight in it. You need to turn up and you need to be there. So hold your head up high is what I would say in every sense of the word. Go into your workplace with your head held high, knowing you haven't done anything wrong. If you go in acting all meek,
or offering some apologies,
don't ever apologise for something you haven't done.
No, I agree with that 100%.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Because people out there's a new culture of bullying. Bullying has happened since the start of humanity. But right now, bullies love nothing more than to act like they're actually righteous. The tables have turned so much. If you give a bully a so-called cause, they will bully until the cows come home. So don't offer up any apology for something you haven't done. Why would you apologise for something you haven't done? Stand your ground.
A lot of people feel intimidated by the feminist movement. Do you feel that when the feminists get together and they're using the press to make these sort of accusations against an individual, they kind of sometimes feel they can't fight back because it's too, the the allegations that are just too overwhelming in nature?
I think feminist means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So I think in any movement, any label, there are extremists. There are people who are more open-minded, who are more in taking a middle ground, and there are people who are just on the utter extreme end of anything. And to me, extremism is always a bad thing. It completely disregards any further thought. It disregards an open mind. And so when you get closed-minded extremist feminists, I wouldn't even call them feminists, personally.
These are just political agitators.
Yeah, people call them fake feminists. But those people who believe that all women are entirely innocent of any ever being able to think something wrong, all women are complete angels, are utterly patronising to real people, to real women. Real women know that men and women can be awful. It can happen both ways, and to judge someone just by their sex is in itself sexist. So I think, you know, when you have a feminist army coming after you, and they have a hell of a lot of influence in the media, when you have these extremists coming after you, I should say, it can be incredibly scary, it can be incredibly threatening. But like I say, eventually, hopefully, the truth will always out.
And this notion of innocent until proven guilty, which has been, part of the due process laws since the Magna Carta, do you think that's being watered down now with the feminist movement, that men are considered guilty of these sex crimes until they've proven themselves innocent?
When it comes to sex crimes and domestic abuse crimes against men, the extremist feminist movement will always fight back and presume a man is guilty from the very start, which goes against everything that we believe. And classic liberalism is believing the opposite. Being a classic liberal means to believe in liberty, to believe in freedom, to believe that every person is innocent until otherwise proven guilty. Now, our court of law is far from perfect. However, it's the best system that we have. A kangaroo court, or somebody going on purely on someone's word, that is a witch hunt. That is so far from being a liberal. So I can't tell who's on whose side anymore. You know, it gets to a point where I don't know who's who. The lines used to be fairly clear cut, and now it's not at all. So this idea of extremist feminists taking on this cause, it's
dividing society, isn't it? So it's dividing men and women against each other. It's making people suspicious of each other when they have interactions.
We're becoming more and more divided, and I think as time goes on, we should be coming more and more together and realising that we have more and more in common. But this whole extremist movement is dividing us more and more, and I don't think that's a healthy thing in any way. I've always preached from the very word that of oneness, of this idea that people should come together, that we are more powerful together. But this extremist feminist movement does not seem to be about empowerment whatsoever, and that to me is the huge change in what's come about. It's about telling people that they're victims, about convincing people that they're victims, whether they are or not. It's about saying, "Oh, you're so poor person. Oh, bless you. This has happened to you. That's happened to you." Where it used to be about, "Come on, we're strong. We can do this. We're all together. Let's go." Now it's about how often we can faint on the couch.
People are feeling uncomfortable.
It's ridiculous.
All the time.
It's ridiculous.
What about this solution then to the problem of false accusations, Jonny? Is it a cultural mindset shift that we need to make as a country? Do false accusers need to receive harsh financial and criminal penalties for making allegations that might cost someone tens of thousands of pounds or millions of pounds, or be career damaging to them?
They absolutely should. I think that what they put people through is absolutely awful. What they put people through is some sort of Kafkaesque nightmare. But not only do they do it to the false accuser, they ruin the falsely accused. They ruin their friends. They ruin their family. Not only that, they make it more difficult for genuine survivors who have actually been through this.
Do they make it more difficult for us to differentiate between sexual predators and just regular people?
Of course. Between sexual predators, between domestic abusers, and between regular, normal people who aren't into doing those things. All of a sudden, it makes it they make it seem that you have to be suspicious of absolutely everyone. That's not the case. The media used to do that for us. It used to feed into our fears, and we used to blame the media for it and say, well, the media are just putting all these fears out there, so we're dividing each other. Actually, they weren't. They were just feeding our appetite of what we wanted. We're showing now that we will divide ourselves up all by ourselves. We will put all the fear out there all by ourselves. I don't think people should go around being scared of being falsely accused. I don't think that's any way to live. However, I think they should be prepared for it, and there should be groups who are here who are fighting back for those who are falsely accused.
And what do individuals have to do to protect themselves in romantic relationships or interpersonal relationships to prevent this from happening?
I mean, there's not really much you can do. I mean, short of getting someone to sign a contract and having someone else with you in the room at all times and filming every interaction you have, you know, that's a complete extreme way to live and is not viable to anyone. Nor is it a world I'd want to live in. It sounds a little too 1984 for me. However, I think what's really difficult is if somebody shows a severe mental illness where they start lying, where they start abusing you, the only way you can do is get out really quick, because it's going to keep escalating.
So what I'd like to ask you to wrap up here, what do men and women, what do society need to do to help men and women interact with each other, you know, safely and fairly, and so it's a win-win for both genders?
I think it's important that we're not divided so much. And so the only solution to that, to me, is if people realise that there are two sides to every story, that actually people are falsely accused, and it happens a lot more than people realise. There are all these statistics floating around about the falsely accused that are absolute rubbish, that are completely made up, that it happens only 2% of the time. Even if it does only happen 2% of the time, which it doesn't, but let's say just for the sake of the argument, it happens 2% of the time.
This is that there's an assault 2% of the time, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
So to say it happens 2% of the time, which is complete rubbish, even if it did, to minimise that experience and say it doesn't matter is ridiculous. So I think in order for people to be able to interact properly and to not be scared of these charges, to not be scared of being abused or to be falsely accused of being abused, we need to see that, look, we need to go back to the idea that you're innocent until proven guilty, and we need to have trust and faith in a system that works, a system that isn't about police and politicians building up their numbers in order to appease certain pressure groups, but actually going, okay, we're interested here in the truth.
Common sense. Yeah.
Common sense, yeah, that's been lost.
And then finally, Jonny, where's Jonny Fox going to be 10 years from now? What are you going to be doing? And you know, will anything you be doing in the future be as a consequence of you know, this experience that's happened to you?
I would imagine so. I mean, this has changed my life so much, and I've spent the past 2 to 3 years purely fighting this. Really, that's everything that's happened to me. 10 years time, I'm hoping I can put this behind me and move on and work again and do what I was put on this earth to do. But I'm certainly never going to forget the falsely accused. I'm never going to stop fighting for the falsely accused, because my eyes have been opened. And I've spent so long campaigning for different causes that, to me, this is just another one. It's a natural progression now for me to go into this, and I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done for the falsely accused. And so, you know, I plan on fighting this not just for myself, but for humanity going forward.
Great. All right, Jonny. Well, look, I appreciate you sharing all these insights with us. It's been fascinating, and appreciate your friendship as well. Look forward to seeing you back here again soon.
Thanks for having me.